to this episode of my book, Belief Systems. This will be chapter number 4. I've got to get myself set up here. Chapter number 4, and the title for this chapter is The Resurrection, the Turning Point of Truth. And so I'm going to read this chapter to you. And just because of the nature of this, I'm going to go ahead and read it without stopping. And then when I finish, I'll go through and I'll scroll and see if there are any. I'm looking at this thing wondering what that is. Oh, that's what's going on then. So when I see what's happening. Got to go like that. There we go. So once I get through with reading the chapter, I'll scroll through and see if there are any comments or questions that kind of appeal to me, that I feel like I'd like to see if I address and talk to you about. So I'd encourage everyone who watches to just stay on board until we get finished with reading the chapter. And so again, welcome, and here we go. Chapter 4. This is called Belief Systems. Who decides the truth? Chapter 4, the resurrection, the turning point of truth. Every belief system has a pressure point, a claim that cannot be surrendered without the entire structure collapsing. For biblical Christianity, that point is not a moral teaching or spiritual principle or a philosophical idea. It is an event. Christianity rises or falls on the resurrection of Jesus Christ. It's not an exaggeration. The New Testament itself insists upon it. If the resurrection did not happen, then Christianity is merely weakened. It's not merely weakened, it is false. There's no room for symbolic reinterpretation or theological retreat. Remove the resurrection, and the entire system comes apart. And this is precisely why the resurrection deserves careful attention. It's not presented as an inspirational poetry or private religious experience. It is presented as history. Unlike many belief systems, Christianity doesn't ask to be shielded from scrutiny. The earliest Christian witnesses appealed only to evidence. They named locations, dates, rulers, and eyewitnesses. They proclaimed the resurrection in the very city where the crucifixion occurred. They did not retreat to safe distances or obscure corners. The claim was simple and dangerous. Jesus, who was publicly executed, was publicly raised from the dead. This was not a claim made generations later. It was proclaimed immediately in a hostile environment among people who could verify or refute it. Christianity did not grow because it was politically convenient or culturally affirmed. It grew because something had happened that demanded explanation. A belief system built on myths avoids history. A belief system built on revelation enters into it. At the heart of the resurrection claim is a stubborn historical fact. The tomb was empty. This detail is so central that every alternative explanation must account for it. The authorities did not deny the empty tomb. They attempted to explain it away. Various theories had been proposed over time, like a wrong tomb or a stolen body or swoon theory, but each collapses under careful consideration. The wrong tomb would have been easily corrected. A stolen body would have been produced. A half-dead man could not have inspired worship or transformed fearful disciples into bold witnesses. An empty tomb alone does not prove a resurrection, but without it, the resurrection cannot be denied. It is the immovable object in the discussion. Christianity does not rest on a single witness or a solitary vision. The resurrection accounts include multiple appearances to individuals and groups in different locations over an extended period. These were not vague impressions. They were physical encounters, conversations, meals, touch. The witnesses were not predisposed to believe. They doubted, feared, and fled. Their transformation requires explanation. Cowardice gave way to courage. Confusion gave way to conviction. Men who had abandoned their leader were suddenly willing to suffer and die for the claim that he had risen. People may die for what they believe to be true. They do not willingly die for what they know to be false. Another overlooked element of the resurrection narrative is the role of hostile witnesses. Roman and religious authorities did not attempt to argue that Jesus had risen spiritually or symbolically. They attempted to suppress the claim entirely. Their actions, guards, seals, bribery, unintentionally confirmed the seriousness of the situation. If the resurrection were merely a spiritual metaphor, it would have posed no threat. The response reveals that something tangible was being claimed and feared. Even critics of Christianity must explain why a movement centered on a crucified man not only survived but exploded in growth. No other explanation accounts for the convergence of evidence as coherently as the resurrection itself. Many belief systems speak of life beyond death, but few anchor that claim to a historical event. Christianity does not say there is hope after death. It says death has been defeated in history. Now, this distinction matters. Hope grounded in philosophy can comfort, but it cannot verify. Hope grounded in history demands a verdict. The resurrection is not merely proof of life after death. It is a declaration of authority. It announces that God has acted decisively within human history, validating the claims of Christ and establishing him as Lord. If Jesus rose from the dead, then his words carry weight no other teacher can claim. The resurrection forces a decision. It does not allow for casual admiration or detached interest. If the resurrection is false, then Christianity is a deception. If it is true, then neutrality is impossible. This is why the resurrection provokes such strong reactions. It's not merely a religious claim. It is a challenge to authority. It confronts human autonomy and demands submission to truth revealed by God. People can reject the resurrection, but they cannot ignore it honestly. It presses the question, who decides what is true, man or God? The resurrection does more than authenticate a belief system. It reshapes reality. If Christ rose, then death is not final. If death is not final, then life carries eternal significance. If life carries eternal significance, then moral choices matter beyond convenience and culture. The resurrection introduces accountability. It affirms justice. It validates hope. It exposes the insufficiency of systems that deny eternity while borrowing moral urgency. A belief system that denies resurrection must explain why people instinctively live as though their choices matter forever. The resurrection explains that instinct. It declares that eternity is real and history has already intersected with it. Over time, countless alternatives to the resurrection have been proposed. Some attempt psychological explanations. Others suggest social dynamics or legendary development. Each requires greater leaps of faith than the resurrection itself. It requires faith to believe that a coordinated deception succeeded without exposure. It requires faith to believe hallucinations occurred identically across groups. It requires faith to believe legend overtook history within a generation of eyewitnesses. Christianity does not ask for blind belief. It asks for honest evaluation of the evidence. When alternatives are examined, they explain less, not more. The resurrection is not merely a miracle. It is a declaration. It confirms that God has spoken, that Scripture is authoritative, and that Christ is who he claimed to be. This is why the resurrection sits at the center of biblical faith. Remove it, and Christianity becomes one more religious philosophy. Affirm it, and Christianity becomes a revelation that stands apart. The resurrection answers the four questions introduced earlier in the book with clarity and force. Origin is intentional, meaning is redemptive, morality is grounded, destiny is eternal. No other belief system offers answers anchored in history rather than aspiration. At this point, the issue is no longer abstract. The resurrection demands a response. It cannot be placed safely on a shelf. It confronts the reader with the same question faced by the earliest witnesses. Did this happen? Well, if it did, then truth has been revealed, authority has been established, and belief systems must be reevaluated accordingly. If it did not, then Christianity must be rejected entirely. There's no intellectually honest middle ground. In the chapters that follow, we will examine belief systems that attempt to answer life's greatest questions without a risen Christ. We will see how religion, philosophy, and naturalism struggle to provide coherence without resurrection. But before those systems can be weighed fairly, the resurrection must be understood clearly. It is not an accessory to Christianity, it is its foundation. Christianity does not begin with a command to believe or to behave better. It begins with the declaration that death has been conquered. History forces a verdict, and every belief system must live with the consequences of that verdict. Well, that's chapter number 4 of the book, Belief Systems, Who Decides the Truth, Man or God? It's a book I wrote, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago, I suppose it came out. And I'm just reading chapter by chapter as I get opportunity and time to do that. And I'll answer questions as you know, now that I've finished reading the chapter, I'll answer questions or comment if I see anything that really kind of stands out that seems like it matters. So I just do have some folks who are kind of giving loves and smiles and things like that. Got Killer Jason says, hi, no, I'm sorry for you. Well, I suppose I'm guessing what you mean is you don't believe in the resurrection, Jason. I don't know that for a fact, but you know, if you feel sorry for me, I'd like you to present some evidence to prove me wrong, that the resurrection did not happen, that the evidence for Christ's resurrection is not true. I'd like to see you be able to do that. And then the comment from McKenna McGrew just says, hello. And I'm really not sure what that symbol is there. I see the 3 crosses behind it, but I don't know what that symbol is before it. And so, and again, I'm awfully new to these things, so I'm seeing a crown number 1 and a crown number 2, and I'm also seeing a crown number 3. Don't know what those mean, but they're there. And unless there are some kind of compelling questions or observations that we can discuss, I think I'm going to go ahead and leave this be right now and just give you this blessing. The Lord bless you and keep you and make his face to shine upon you, be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. I don't know what the crowns mean. All right, take care.